Between February 2015 and March of 2019, Shout Factory released 12 Super Sentai shows on DVD in North America. But why did they stop? Let's investigate.
It's Morphin' Time!
Hello, this is Soundout here, and today we're talking about the Super Sentai DVDs from Shout Factory. Now this is a contentious topic within the fandom because there has been a lot of, rude and uninformed comments made towards different people when talking about this subject. And I thought, alright, let's make a video about it. I'm a home media guy, I'm a tokusatsu guy, let's meet this in the middle and see where we can come up with an answer. Because a lot of fans are baffled as to why Shout Factory stopped releasing Super Sentai on DVD after Ninpu Sentai Hurricaneger. I have a few theories, and I want to dispel one right away. I don't think the reason why we don't have Sentai DVDs coming out anymore is entirely Hasbro/E1. For some context, Hasbro purchased Power Rangers in 2018, E1 Entertainment was purchased in 2019 by Hasbro, and Power Rangers was moved under the E1 banner along with all of Hasbro's media properties in that same year. Now, since E1 took over Power Rangers media, there hasn't been any home video releases. Like, at all. No Beast Morphers, no Dino Fury, no re-releases, stuff's been going out of print. It's pretty much starting to dry up on the Power Rangers disc front. But, despite all of that, the Super Sentai DVDs are still in print. They're still available for streaming on Tubi, and there is still licensed material for Super Sentai releasing in North America, such as the Go Ranger manga from 7 Seas Entertainment. While the quick answer to point to is, oh, Hasbro and E1 shut down the Sentai DVDs so they don't want competition with Power Rangers, that is a potential answer. However, there is a bigger picture at play here that most people aren't considering, and I thought, let's present what we know and how it can apply to the Sentai DVDs as to why they stopped releasing. But before we get into that, I think it'd be a good chance to run down all of the previous Sentai DVDs before we start talking about what their future might be, if there is one. So naturally the releases started with Zyuranger because Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger was the basis for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1, and it's iconic. Now, the interesting packaging choice made here was, how do we make this look like a bootleg? I have never been a fan of these DVD covers, ever. The whole before Power Rangers there was Super Sentai thing is a nice marketing tagline, but they just look really off. They don't look official, and that's because a lot of these shows are too old to have nice promotional images. That being said, the choice to have the Sentai actors here for their civilian actors was a good choice, I think, to convey that this was different, but at the same time, if you were to see this on a store shelf, none of which you would ever see on a store shelf for reasons we'll get into, I don't think this gets across that, hey, this is a Power Rangers thing. If you look at the small images, sure, but the big image, no. Anyways, it does say Zyuranger the complete series. I wish it said Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger, because consistency we'll see later, but I do like the Japanese logo being on there. That is nice. 10 DVD set. This does have a bonus feature. It's the only one to have that, and that was a Morphicon 2014 panel. Kind of neat. Now you see it does have Shout and Saban brands listed because of the Power Rangers connection due to Saban's licensing of Power Rangers at the time. It's like, oh yeah, before Mighty Morphin Power Rangers there was Super Sentai Zyuranger. That's not the title of the show. See where the world I found it again with the original Japanese series inspired Power Rangers and yada yada yada. It's nice. The case itself, I mean, it is holding 10 discs. It's not the best quality. As you can see, that part is busted on one of the spindles. The case is actually split up here. They're not the highest quality cases, and the disc art's pretty boring on this set. So, I mean, it was a good start. Now, the problem with this is that being Zyuranger, that's off Toei's DVDs, which means they look like, you know, weird VHS copies, because that's what Toei has for these shows. Because, I don't know, they must have dumped the masters at some point. They've never remastered any of these series, and it's because they were shot and finished on videotape, and they don't ever want to do anything with them. So it looks okay, not great. Subtitles-wise, a lot of mistimings. Quite a few, actually, which is kind of a problem for an official release. All right, now Dairanger here, I did like that they added the Gosei Sentai Dairanger. That way you have Super Sentai as an overall branding, but you do have the full Sentai title there. Again, going with the civilian looks, it's okay. It's okay. Spine art-wise, not consistent with the Zyuranger, as I mentioned, because Zyuranger decided not to have the full title. But they do look nice together. Again, a little bootleggy. They just don't look that official to me. But anyways, there's no bonus features. It's just the show. And in the case of Dairanger, it does not contain its movie. Apparently, they couldn't get the license to the movies because that was a separate license from the show. Frickin' Toei. I did like how each disc has different artwork to it. It cycles through the Dairangers pretty nicely, and then they do get, some different art there. Pretty cool. It's a nice set. The subtitles are probably better on this than some of the others, which is nice to see. But again, it looks like videotape because that's Toei. And that's just how they kept the shows. Now, whether or not due to the Alien Rangers not being well known, Kaku Ranger did get a full team shot in costume. And this is something we'll see going forward. But anyways, Ninja Sentai Kaku Ranger, one of my absolute favorite Sentais. Totally hate this release. And the reason why is because, for some reason, on these DVDs, there is mistimings, grammar errors, and untranslated lines. There is an episode where the Romanji appears, which is the phonetic of the Japanese words, instead of English words. I don't know what happened here. I think the subtitles were licensed out to a third party. Also, we're back to same art on all the discs, probably because there just wasn't anything available. Toei is terrible at keeping stuff. The set's okay. I just wish the subtitles were better because, again, there shouldn't be untranslated Romanji lines in a subtitle release. And that's the only one that has a Romanji line, but there's some others that have some other issues that are similar. Next up, we have Choiki Sentai O-Ranger, probably my least favorite Sentai I've ever seen. Gonna be real. I like this cover the best because it has the suits, the unhelmeted shot. I wish they all had this, again, because Toei stock photography may not have had it. But it would have been nice to have had unhelmeted versions of all the Rangers, so you get the Power Ranger connection visually, and then the unhelmeted look of the Sentai actors, so you know it's Sentai. That would have been nice. Anyways, O-Ranger here. It looks okay. This is when the sets switch to 8 discs, which is fine. It's still shooting better than the Ultraman DVD sets, which are only 6. Like I said, the case quality was terrible. As you can see, there is a chunk just straight up missing out of the top of this one, and it's just like super broken all throughout. Wonderful shipping job there. But yeah, there's all 8 discs. They all have the same art. It's fine. There's a lot of mistimings. There actually is some missing translated lines. And I understand that this is like a 50 episode show and that's a lot of work, but if you're charging 50 to 60 bucks for a DVD set, I feel like the subtitles should be like really solid, not kind of wishy-washy. Next up, we have Car Ranger. Car Ranger's probably got the best cover because it doesn't look bootleggy, because it's got this like explosion thing going on, and it's very stylized, and the racing flag design. Really cool. It's nice. I don't really have anything else to say from this point forward because you still have some of the similar issues of mistiming lines, missing lines, but it's much better than it was for O-Ranger. And I believe there was some discussion that O-Ranger may have reused fan sub translations, and I think Car Ranger and Ginga Man as well. Yikes. But that could be a coincidence. That's something that I don't think has been fully investigated. But yeah, there is Car Ranger. Omega Ranger, I thought this might have been the last set, to be honest, because I wasn't sure if they were going to continue beyond the Zordon era Sentai, if the sales would keep going and keep this running. But we kept going, and that's nice. The fact we did get 12 sets, I want to say, is a gracious thing in and of itself. We could have gotten only like the first 3 or just 1. So the fact we did get 12 is something we should all be grateful for. Mega Ranger set's probably one of the better ones. Subtitle quality-wise, pretty good. Packaging-wise, it's pretty much the same thing. Again, I like the suits being on the front. If you're not going to have an unhelmeted shot, just have the suits. It's much more visually appealing. But, that's just how it is. Seiju Sentai Ginga Man. This one is also a decent set with subtitle quality. I like the cover a lot, especially because it's got like the Lights of Ginga versions of the Quasar launchers. Not the Quasar launchers, whatever they were called in Ginga Man. They're pretty nice. Really good set. Again, really nice consistency. I do like this. All 50 episodes. And just like with Dairanger, none of these have the movies. I just want to say that. There is no Versus movies. There is no Summer movies. There is nothing extra. It is just the sets. And that's also why that $50 to $60 price point stings a lot, because there's not anything bonus beyond just, here's the show in passable quality with decent subtitles. Next up, we have Go-Go 5. Probably one of the better covers as well. I didn't like the subs on this one, because they would do this sort of annoying, by the way, they never credit the subtitles. They do put DVD producer and packaging design, but I actually don't know the company that did the subtitles. Anyways, the subs for this one bug me because the phrase burning rescue Damashi, which 2 parts of that is in English, and Damashi is spirits or soul, is translated as something like fiery rescue spirits or something. It's like, it's some weird translation, but it should just be burning rescue spirit or burning rescue spirits. The final episode is still titled Burning Rescue Spirits, but for some reason in all the episodes they changed the translation of that to remove the English part and come up with something new. Why? Just keep the English. I don't know. So we have Time Ranger, Mirai Sentai Time Ranger, once again, just the series, but this one does include all 51 episodes. They didn't cut that recap thing, the Super Sentai compilation, that is still included as episode 51, so I'm glad Toei let that happen, because then we get kind of a glimpse of other Sentai teams that we may never see on DVD. And overall, a nice looking set. Again, discs in the same sort of thing. Cover's nice. I do like how it has Time Fire on it. That is a big positive. But yeah, it's Time Ranger. If I were to point to a single set that caused a problem, Gao Ranger never went on sale on Amazon. It was always at the $60 price point, the list price. I love Gao Ranger. I didn't want to pay $60. I eventually broke down and did it because I had all the other sets. For some reason, this one never discounted on Amazon, which was the biggest place that people were getting these from. And that may have hurt a lot of sales. But that being said, this is a nice looking set. It's got a nice, I like the earth background. Once again, discs are, well, this is a completely different case style, but there's 8 discs in there. Same art on all of them. Just the series. No Gao Ranger versus Super Sentai. No additional anything. It's just Gao Ranger. After Gao Ranger, they pulled a swerve and got Shojin Sentai Jetman out there. This was supposed to be Power Rangers at one point, much like a lot of pre-Jew Ranger seasons. But this was a non-Power Rangers adapted season that got a DVD. And this was a really big hope that we could get the other non-Power Rangers shows on DVD. Unfortunately, this is the next to last release of the Sentai DVDs. And yeah, it's kind of unfortunate because, yeah, Jetman's a great show. This release is pretty good. I actually don't have a problem with any of the subtitles. Picture quality is fine for what it is and how it was mastered. And yeah, it was nice to get a pre-Jew Sentai right here. And there was kind of hope that we would go one pre-Jew, one future, one pre-Jew, one future. But yeah, this was the only pre-Jew one we got out. And yeah, it's still a really nice release. So here's Hurricaneger, sadly the last release. Quality seems fine. Subtitles seem pretty decent. It's just okay, just like a lot of the others. I think the biggest problem with these sets were they were just okay, but they cost a chunk of money. Interestingly enough, this one did come out in 2019, so it does have the Hasbro logo on it, but not the E1 logo. So this is the pre-E1 buyout. But yeah, I mean, it's still under SGC Power Rangers, which is the Bond Capital Group. But it still says licensed by Hasbro. So yeah, and this was the last one, and sadly that was all it was for the Super Sentai DVDs. So with the releases aside, what went into actually releasing these? Well, first of all, from what we understand, the best we could from Brian Ward, who was a producer on the DVDs at Shout Factory, Jew Ranger came to be on DVD because Shout Factory ran out of Power Ranger seasons to do. They had the license for Mighty Morphin through RPM. For whatever reason, Saban went with Lionsgate for Samurai Onward. Probably to sweeten them up for a movie deal. Essentially, Shout Factory was out of Power Rangers, but they still wanted to work in this space. And they asked Saban, is there anything we can do as an additional thing? And apparently people at Saban Brands, maybe Haim Saban himself, said, we could get you in contact with Toei if you want to license Super Sentai. And that's essentially the short answer of how we got here. And Jew Ranger sold well enough to do Die Ranger and etc. But there is some problems with these releases, as I kind of briefly went over, and that led to another thing that I think actually may be a bigger factor than Hasbro's takeover: sales. How well did these actually sell? Well, let me give you an example. Jew Ranger sold pretty good. There was a lot of Sentai fans or a lot of Power Rangers fans that picked this up out of a curiosity, that wanted to see how the quality was. And as I went over, quality ain't great on this, and most of that is Toei's fault, but quality isn't great on these DVDs. They also were expensive for being DVDs. With a list price of $55 to $60, the cheapest you can usually get it is around $40, which, again, not too bad, but when you're getting video quality that's this rough, I don't know if that's really good to the average consumer, especially in an HD era. Going with the older Sentai shows gives you the Power Rangers tie-in, but does it give you something that people will want to return to over and over? And then the other factor that comes in is I saw a lot of Power Rangers and Sentai fans not pick these up initially, me included. I bought Zyuranger right away, but I sort of dragged my feet on the others, simply because I didn't feel like the quality was worth it for the $45 to $50 that most online retailers were selling it for. It just wasn't worth it, so I picked them up on sale. And honestly, I felt a little bit better that way. I only recently completed the set because these just didn't feel worth the money. They were at a higher price. Now, where'd that higher price come in? Was it Shout Factory? Not necessarily. Shout Factory's Kamen Rider 01 Blu-ray costs about as much as one of these does, but comes with way more stuff and is in HD. These are likely a result of Toei licensing cost. And that is the point that I want to make the most. Toei does not do licensing well. And what I mean by that is where you have other companies such as Sunrise with the Gundam franchise. They said, all right, Nozomi Entertainment, we signed an exclusive deal with you for the Gundam franchise. You get to have access to all of it. Here's our licensing deal. Mill Creek and the Tsuburaya company for Ultraman and related releases. Same deal. Here you can license the whole library. We have a deal with you. From what I understand, based on Toei licensing from other companies and talking to people within the industry, Toei licenses their shows one by one. And from what I understand as well, they don't come cheap. Essentially, you could get license for Super Sentai for the same price as the license of all of One Piece. And that would just be for Zyuranger, because they charge each of these shows as an individual piece. You can't license the Sentai franchise as a whole. This is likely also why Kamen Rider has been released under multiple companies in North America, between Shout, Media Blasters, Toku HD, and others, because they license each of these shows as a separate entity. Now here's the thing. Another factor into the DVD sets is that these DVD sets, while appealing to fans, people that know Super Sentai, especially with these covers, may not appeal to the casual audience. But more specifically, I never saw a single one of these sets in a general retail store. I saw Zyuranger in an FYE in a Hastings, back when both of those still existed in my area, and I saw a Kaku Ranger once at some random DVD shop in a mall. And that's it. I never saw hardly any of these in person. And the reason why is because, not just from the perspective of their niche product, Walmart and Target don't care what the hell a Super Sentai is. Mill Creek made a great deal with Ultraman, where you can pick up Ultraman stuff at Walmart, Target, and Best Buy. That's availability. That means better sales. The price also reflects that. Was Walmart going to pick up a $50 DVD set of a show they've never heard of that vaguely looks like Power Rangers? Probably not. If you're going to sell something that looks like something else, they'd rather have it on the cheap, because that means more sales. So the availability issue is that you basically had to order your Sentai DVDs from Shout Factory or Amazon, and there was very few options in between. I saw the DVDs at FYE, but they were at list price, $60, which again, was already too much at the lower price, let alone a higher one. And honestly, when it comes down to it, the sales may not have been there. These always would hit some charts on Amazon, but there was only 2 instances where it was #1 in international, Zyuranger and Jetman. Sentai fans really wanted Jetman, but that's it. I don't know if these sets really sold all that well. Were they selling the bare minimum to get the license for the next one? And maybe Hurricaneger bottomed it out. Maybe they were going to license 5-Man as was speculated, but they didn't have the money to because Shout was not getting enough sales to compensate for Toei's licensing fees. This is the more likely answer to me for why we stopped getting the Sentai DVDs, as opposed to just, oh, Hasbro doesn't like Sentai. Hasbro mentions Sentai in almost every one of their Power Rangers live streams. There is other stuff that has come out, such as the Go Ranger manga. Sentai is not something that Hasbro tries to actively avoid. And while they may be a factor into why the releases aren't happening, I think a bigger factor is Toei's insane licensing fees, and Shout Factory possibly not having enough sales to justify it. Shout Factory has not lost the license to these shows. They are still streaming on Shout Factory TV through Tokushoutsu, on Pluto TV as well. But that doesn't mean they're going to make any new ones. They already have those. Those are pre-done. It's set in stone. The question is, will we get any future Sentai DVDs? At the moment, I think the future's kind of bleak. Honestly, Shout Factory is doing a better job with Kamen Rider anyways. The subtitle quality is much better, and having shows in HD definitely is an improvement. But when it comes down to it, Is the Sentai DVDs a good thing to return as they were? Absolutely not. I think the market has completely shifted. Ultraman going almost all Blu-ray, despite some stumbles back into DVD for the Heisei era, and Kamen Rider being all Blu-ray, means that if Sentai came out with another one of these DVD sets in the quality they were, they couldn't even make it anymore to the casual audience. Because they didn't even make it with the hardcore fandom. Because they were simply too expensive. So while you can still pick up all the Sentai DVDs that were released, and it is nice to have them on physical media, I don't know if there's a future to this. I think we're pretty much done on Sentai because currently Power Rangers as a brand is struggling. So how can a company expect to sell its Japanese counterpart? So that's pretty much all I got. There is probably more factors behind the scenes that I could speculate upon, but based on everything I've physically seen and visibly have seen from my experience, the likely answer to what ruined the Sentai DVDs? Toei's licensing fees and their weird way of distributing things internationally. It's a strange story for sure, and we may never get any further clarity, but I wanted to make this video to essentially sort of dispel a lot of the Hasbro hates Sentai and will stop anything from happening. Hasbro didn't pull copyright on this Go Ranger manga, and it even uses a similar Sentai logo to the Sentai DVDs. There's no Hasbro trademarks on this. It was a license from Ishinomori Productions, but Hasbro could have stepped in with copyright and said, no, you can't release this. But they didn't. So when it comes down to it, that's the end of the story for Sentai and DVDs at the moment. And yeah, would I like to see them come back? Sure. But I'd need they come back in either a cheaper DVD that's still got the same quality or a standard definition Blu-ray. It's the only way it's going to work in this modern era, especially with home media at the state it is, where it is sort of a niche thing that only certain people like. But that does it for this video. If you have any future theories or thoughts, or want to ask further questions about some of the details in this video, please leave a comment down below. While you're down there, hit the like button, let me know you enjoyed this. Hit subscribe and the notification bell for future home media, as well as tokusatsu videos. I know this one's kind of a bummer. I hope to come back with something more energetic on my next video. It's hard to talk about this without getting a little sad that they aren't continuing, but understanding why they aren't continuing, I think, is very important as well. Also, be sure to check out my awesome graphic designer on Twitter at darkclaw643 and Hero Club at hero-club.com for news and more. And until next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.